Hello everyone, welcome back to Force Fellow. My name is Ashok. Today in this video, we will see how to do pagination in LWC. Pagination is very important from a user experience and performance point of view when developing a custom component to show large amount of data. Because it helps to load and display data in chunks rather than loading all at once. And if you load data in chunks, then loading time will reduce and user experience will improve. And server load will also reduce, and also we can avoid hitting Salesforce governor limits. Therefore, implementing pagination is highly recommended when dealing with large dataset in custom components. In this video, we will cover multiple scenarios for implementing pagination. We will see how to do client-side pagination, how to do server-side pagination with or without Datatable. I'll also share code with you, so if you have any requirement, you can use that same code and get your work done more efficiently. Alright, now first let me show you what we will build in this video. In my another org, I have already created a demo. So let me walk you through that. Here you can see we have implemented 3 examples. In first, we will see how to do client-side pagination. Client-side pagination means we will load all the data at once from server, and then in client-side controller, or we can say in JavaScript file, we will do manipulation and show data page-wise. For a large amount of dataset, this approach is not very efficient because here from server, we will fetch all the records in a single call. So if you have lots of records in an object, then we should not prefer this approach. But if you have only few records and in future also record size will be less, like 50, 100 or 200, like here in this scenario, we have 37 records and we want to give an option to user to see records as they required, then we can go with client-side pagination. Okay. Here in our pagination, we are giving an option to select how many records you want to see in a page. So once user will select, then page size will automatically reset. Like let's select 5. Alright. Now we can see only 5 records here. And all these options are configurable. You can change them as per your project requirement. Like let's say you don't want to show 5 here or you want to show 200 as well, then that is also possible. You can configure it by yourself. Okay. Then here we are showing current records that are visible here in table. As of now, here we can see records from 1 to 5. So that we are showing here. And once I'll change page number, like once I'll click on this next button, then you will see 6 to 10. Okay. And here we are showing total records count. Alright. And here in right side, we are showing few buttons to navigate between pages. Like if you want to go on first page, then you can click on this button. And if you want to go on previous page, then you can use this button like this. And when you are on first page, then these buttons will automatically disable. And if you want to go on next page, then you can click on this button. And if you want to navigate on last page directly, then you can click on go to last page. Okay. So using these buttons, user can switch pages. And let's say user directly want to jump on a particular page. Let's say on page number 5. Then instead of going one by one, user can directly go from here as well, like this. Okay. So if you have only few records and want to show with pagination, then you can go with this client-side pagination approach. How you can implement pagination in your component, that we will cover in some time. But before that, let's see next example where we have implemented server-side pagination with Datatable. So if you have a requirement where you have lots of records and want to show those records as a list in LWC component, then instead of using client-side pagination, we should use server-side pagination. Why? Because in client-side pagination, we used to load all the data at once. But if you have lots of records, like more than 10k, and if we try to load all the records in a single call, then server will take extra time to fetch and return all those records. And client will also require additional time to process those records. And in case if you have more than 50,000 records, then we will get governor limit exception as well, right? So in case if you have large amount of records and want to show them on UI, then instead of loading all together from server, we should load data in chunks as per requirement. It means from server, we will fetch only those records, those will be visible on that page. And this process is called server-side pagination. In pagination strip, here also we are showing items per page option, then visible records and total records count. And then in right side, we are showing previous and next button. Here is the current page number and this is the total pages count. Okay. Now let's understand how server-side pagination is working here. So internally, when this component initially load, then we are fetching only these 10 records along with total records count. And once we'll click on next page button, then again we are making a server call to fetch next set of records. Okay. So this is how server-side pagination is working with Datatable. In some time, we will practically see how to implement this. Next example is similar to previous one, but here instead of Datatable, we have used other elements to bind UI. So if you have a requirement to show pagination without Datatable, then you can refer this example. Okay. Now let's move ahead and see how to implement pagination for all these scenarios. To save videos time, I have created the same structure in my another org, and as of now, there we don't have pagination implemented. Let me show you. Alright, here also we can see 3 tabs. This is for client-side pagination, this is for server-side pagination with Datatable, and this is for without Datatable. And here you can see we don't have pagination implemented, so all the records are visible. And once I'll click on this server-side pagination tab, then you can notice it's keep loading. Why? Because in account object, we have more than 2500 records. And here we are loading them in a single call. So that's why it is taking time. Here also, we don't have pagination created. And also not in this component as well. Okay. Now, before getting started with pagination part, first let me show you the components which I created to build this UI. And for that, let me open VS Code. So as of now, for demo purpose, here I have created 4 LWC components. This is for client-side pagination, and this one is the main component, or we can say parent component, where tabs are created and calling all these components under different tabs. Like here we are calling client-side pagination component, here calling server-side with Datatable, and here server-side without Datatable. And this component we created for server-side pagination with Datatable, and this one is for without Datatable. Okay. And also I have created one Apex class, pagination demo controller, with 2 methods, get contacts and get accounts. Okay. So this is what I already created, and in your case also you might have this basic structure created, or if you want to start from scratch, then you can take my components as it is. Or if you are completely new to LWC and want to learn from scratch, then you can refer my crash course and live project videos. Okay. Now let's see how to implement pagination with these components. And first, let's start with client-side pagination. So before starting code changes, you have to download my code, and download link is available in video description. And once you'll download and extract files, then here you will find 2 folders, classes and LWC. In LWC folder, you will find 5 components, and these 4 components I already created in my project. But in your case, it's not required to create all the components. You can take as per your actual requirement. But this paginator component is must to take. This is the generic or reusable component which I created to handle everything related to pagination. I mean that whole pagination strip is created inside this component. In some time, we'll explain what code I have written in this component. But before that, let's copy this component from here and paste in our project. And also, let's deploy it to org. Deployment is done. And now, let me open this downloaded code inside VS Code. So we can copy and use same code. Here, let's open client-side pagination component HTML and copy this pagination HTML markup and paste in our component. Where we will paste it? Below Datatable markup. Here. Okay. Now let me explain this code. So here we are calling Paginator component and used LWC if directive to conditionally hide and show this component and pass this show Paginator property. So let's copy this property from downloaded code. Here it is. And paste in our components JavaScript file. Okay. And then here we are passing page size and total records value. Let me copy and paste these properties as well. Let's copy till enable pagination and paste in our component. Here we have created 4 properties: page size with default value 10, page number with 1, total records with 0, and enable pagination as true. And in this component, we want to implement client-side pagination. So here we have passed true. At last, here we have added pagination change event listener and assigned this handler method. Let's copy and paste this method as well. Here we have to copy one more getter property, records to display. And let's pass this here into data property of Datatable. And here let's assign value into total records property. Here in total records property, simply we are passing records length. That's it. You just have to copy and paste few lines of code and then your pagination will work fine. Now let's deploy this component and verify pagination is working or not. Alright, now here we can see pagination strip, same as our demo. Here default page size is 10, but we can change as per our requirement. Like let's select 20. Now you can see 20 records here in table, and if we'll select 5, then you can see 5 records here. Here you can see 1 to 5 and total records count is 36. And by default, go to first and previous button is disabled because now we are on first page. But if I'll click on next, then page size will change to 2 like this. And these buttons also enabled. And once I'll click on go to last, then I'll reach on last page like this. And if I directly want to jump on any page, then I can select from here like this. Okay. It means our pagination is working fine, right? Now let's understand what is going on under the hood or how this pagination is working. And for that, let's understand what code I have written in this Paginator component. First, let's start with JS file. Here, first we have declared few public properties with default values. Why we have declared these public properties? Because, this component will be called as a child component. I mean, wherever we want to implement pagination, there we will call this component. For example, here we called in client-side pagination. And similarly, we'll call in server-side pagination as well, or wherever pagination is required, right? Now, to generate pagination strip, we want to get few details from parent component, or you want to give an option to caller that they can customize pagination as per their needs. For example, here we have declared a property page size with default value 20, and also we have used API decorator. In LWC, API decorator makes properties and methods as public. It means now in this property, we can pass value from parent component as well. If we will not pass any value from there, then 20 will be default value, right? So by making these properties as public, we are giving an option to make this pagination strip as configurable. Okay. So if you want to set page size other than 20, then you can assign it from parent component. Like here we are passing, and here in page size property, we have assigned 10. So now default page size will be 10, not 20. Okay. Next property we have page number with default value 1. Then we have total records count. So in this property, we have to pass total number of records. that can be visible in table. And if we are calling this paginator for client-side pagination, then we have to pass true in this property. Default value is false. So in case of server-side pagination, no need to pass it. Here we have passed true because in this component we are implementing client-side pagination, right? Then in this items per page options property, we are defining page size options. So by default we have these options, but it's a public property. So in case if you want other values, let's say in one component you want to give an option for 200 page size as well, then from that component you can pass other values in this property. We'll show you later how you can pass. Okay, so in nutshell, using these public properties, we are taking details from parent components and making pagination more configurable. I mean, from parent component we can configure what should be default page size or page number, or is it a client-side pagination or server-side pagination, and what all page size options you want to show. Alright, now here I have created few getter properties. Getter properties are special properties in Lightning Web components that allow us to perform calculations and return a value. LWC doesn't allow calculations directly in HTML template file. Therefore, whenever we want to display calculated data, we use getter properties in HTML template file. This items per page property I have used to bind that items per page dropdown. Here, in this property, what I am doing? Simply here I have used map function with items per page options property to transform this property values into a drop-down values. If you want to know more how this map function is internally working, or in what all scenarios we can use this function, then do let me know in the comments. We'll create a separate video on this. Okay. This property returns total pages count. Here we have used math.ceil function and passed total records count and page size. Few other properties also I have created, like this is to check whether previous button should be enabled or not. I mean, if we are already on first page, then previous button should not be clickable, right? So to check that, we are using this property, and to check for next button, we are using this property. So whenever we reach on last page, then next button will automatically disable. And these properties we are using to calculate and return CSS classes for previous and next button. I mean, if button is disabled, then we want to change background color. That's why we are adding disable class. Okay. And using this property, we are calculating page numbers to show in drop down here. And this is to calculate from record, and this is to record to show here. Okay. So these all getter properties we have created, and after that here we have created few functions, like this will be called on previous button click, and here we are checking if page number is greater than 1, then doing subtraction by 1, and then calling reload data method that we created here. Now what this method will do, this method will raise a custom event. Here event name is pagination change, and in detail property we are passing page size, page number and operation type. And from here we are dispatching this custom event. Okay. And this button will get called on next button click. Here we are increasing page number by 1 and again calling reload data method and passing updated page number. This button will get called on go to first button click, and here we are setting page number by 1, and this will get called on go to last button click, and here we are setting page number as total pages count. Okay. And this method will get called from that page change drop down. From here, I mean, whenever we'll change page number in this drop down, then this method will get called, and here we are reading drop down value and passing to reload data method. And on page size change, this method will get called. So here we are updating value in page size property and resetting page number to 1. Okay. So in all these methods, we are calling this reload data method. It means whenever any change happen in page size or page number, then we are notifying parent component about it using this custom event and passing these details. Okay. Now, if we go through the HTML file, then here we have used lightning layout with SLDS padding class. This is just to show some space around pagination. And inside this layout, here we are showing items per page text with drop down. Then in middle part of page, here we are showing total records count. You can see here we are referring those getter properties that we created here. Okay. And at last, here we are showing buttons. This is for go to first page. And here we have added onClick listener and assigned handler method. And also use this getter property to get CSS classes dynamically. And this is for go to previous page. Here also we have assigned onClick handler and used getter property for CSS classes. Then here we are showing a drop down with all the page numbers. So user can jump on any page. And in this section, we are showing current page and total pages count. At last, this one is for go to next page and this one is for go to last page. Okay. Here in this component bundle, I have also created a CSS file and added few custom CSS for those buttons and drop downs. So if you want to do any customization with buttons background color or size, then that you can do here. Alright. So this is how we have created a generic component for pagination, and this is quite simple, right? So if you want to do any customization, then you can do here. Like let's say you want to show different text here instead of this, then you can easily update here. Okay. Now let's understand how this pagination is working. So in this client side pagination component, here we have used wire decorator to get context data and calling this getContext method that we created here. So whenever this component will get load, then this wire decorator will be called and send a server request to call this method. Now from this method, we will return all the contexts which are available in database, right? Then here inside callback method, here we are assigning those contexts into records property. It means now in this array property, we will have all the contexts. So in this total records property, we have assigned length of this records property. And in HTML, here we have used lightning Datatable and passed records to display property as data. And inside this property, we are doing calculation and returning data for that particular page. I mean here first we are calculating from record value, and formula is page number minus 1 multiply page size. Initially page number is 1 and page size is 10. So here 1 minus 1 is 0 and multiply 10. So in from we will get 0. Then in 2 we will get 10 because page size is 10 and page number is 1. So 10 multiply 1 equals to 10. Then finally here we have used JavaScript slice method to get particular set of records. I mean, in records array, we have all the contexts, but here we want to return from 1 to 10. So this slice method will return only those records. And it takes two parameters, start range and end range. So in case of first page, we are passing 0 in start range and 10 in end range. So finally from here, we will get only those records which needs to be visible in Datatable, right? Then here we have called Paginator component and passed value in these public properties and also added this event listener and assigned this handler method. So based on these values, this Paginator component will render a pagination strip. Now if we do any change in Paginator, like let's say we click on this next button, then this handler method will get called, and inside this handler method, here we are increasing page number by 1 and then calling this method. And now inside this method, here we are raising a custom event, and in detail property we are passing these details. I mean we are passing page size and page number. And here in client side pagination component, here we are listening that event and assign this handler method. It means whenever this event will raise from child, then this JavaScript method will automatically get called. And And here we are simply reading and updating value in page number and page size property. Okay. So if you know how parent to child and child to parent data communication works in LWC, then you definitely got this point, like what is happening here. Or if you don't know how data communication works in LWC components, then it might be difficult for you to understand. So in that case, I would highly recommend you to first learn how data communication works in LWC. And for that, you can refer my data communication video series. Link is available in description. Okay. Now, whenever value will get changed in these properties, then this getter property will automatically recalled and calculate and return data as per new values. So now page number will be 2. Then 2 minus 1 equals to 1. Multiply 10 equals to 10 in from. And in 2, we will get 20. Which means now this method will return records between index 10 to 20. I mean records from 11 to 20. Right. Here you might be thinking why this getter property will automatically recalled. Well, this is because in this getter property, we have used reactive properties. I mean by default in LWC, all the properties are reactive. Reactive means whenever value will get changed, then all the subscribers will notified about that value change. So this getter property will also notified by framework that something has been changed in these properties. So that's why framework will automatically call this property again. Now this getter property will also work as reactive. So whenever output will get changed, then it will be notified to this data table as well. So finally in this data table, we will get records for second page. Okay. So this is how pagination internally works. I hope now you have fair understanding about how pagination is actually working. And now you can easily implement client-side pagination wherever required. And also you can do customization if there is any need. Alright. And now let's move ahead and see how to do server-side pagination. First, let me start with server-side pagination with Datatable. So let's open HTML file and also open HTML file in downloaded code. As I said, we will use that same paginator component in server-side pagination as well. So let's copy this HTML markup from here and paste below Datatable. Here also we are passing page size and total records count and assign this handler method to pagination change event. Okay. Now let's copy these properties and methods from downloaded code. Let's copy till last record ID and paste in our component. Let's copy this show paginator property as well and paste here. And now it's time to copy and paste pagination handler method. Okay. So we have copied everything related to pagination, but here we will do server-side pagination. It means from server or from Apex class, we will return only those records, those needs to visible on that particular page. We will not return all the records at once, right? Now, if we see current implementation of this method, then it's quite simple. And will return all the available accounts. Now the question is how we can return only required records or how to write Apex code for server-side pagination. So to implement server-side pagination in Apex, there are multiple approaches available where first and basic approach is using limit and offset keywords. First let me write code, then we'll explain it to you. Okay, here I have added two input parameters, page size and offset, and in a SQL query added limit keyword and passed page size value, and also used offset keyword and passed offset as value. Now the question is what this limit and offset keyword will do. So in SQL query, using limit keyword, we can define how many records we want to fetch. For example, in a page, we want to show only 10 records, and if you'll pass 10 here, then instead of returning all the records, this query will return only 10 records. Okay? So in other words, we can say limit keyword is used to define records limit, and using offset keyword, we can define which subset of records you want to get. I mean, let's say our page size is 10 and we are on 5th page, then there we should see records from 41 to 50, right? Now, how we will get those 10 records from 41 to 50? That's where offset keyword comes into the picture. In other words, we can say using offset keyword, we can define how many records we want to skip from result set. So here if we'll pass 40 as value, then this query will return 10 records after 40, which means 41 to 50, right? So this is how using limit and offset keyword, we can return data page wise. Okay? Well, this approach is good and very simple to use, but here we have a major problem. That is, here we can't pass offset value more than 2000, which means if we have more than 2000 records and want to do pagination, then this approach will not work. Why? Because whenever you pass more than 2000 as value in offset, then this query will throw an exception. With offset keyword, Salesforce has hard-coded max limit as 2000. So whenever you need to work with more than 2000 records, then this approach will not work. Alright? Now here question is, what we can do if we want to implement pagination where records are more than 2000? So in that case, Salesforce directly doesn't provide any option to achieve such kind of requirements. That's why you might notice that in Salesforce out-of-box pages, we don't have pagination implemented, right? But here in Apex, we have an alternative that we can use any unique value field to get next subset of records like ID field. In Salesforce objects, ID is a standard auto number field which always store unique incremental value for each record. So we can use ID field to fetch pagination wise records, or we can use other unique value fields as well. But in every object, ID field is always available, so it is commonly used for server-side pagination. Alright, now let's see how to do server-side pagination using ID field. Let me copy code from downloaded files. Okay, so now here also we are taking two input parameters, page size and last record ID. This is the ID of the last record retrieved from the previous response. And we will use this ID to fetch next set of records that have ID greater than to this last record ID. And in case of first page, we will not have value in last record ID. So that's why here we are creating SQL query dynamically. Here on line number 17, initially we are writing basic query. Then here we are checking is last record ID is not blank. Then in query, adding where condition to check ID should be greater than to the last record ID. That's how we will get records for next page. And at last, here we are adding order by ID and limit keyword to fetch records as per page size. Okay? So this is how using unique value field, we can fetch data page wise. Alright? Now, let's make some changes in JavaScript file to pass value in these parameters. You can see here we have already declared properties for page size and last record ID. So now let's pass these properties value to Apex method. Let me copy code from downloaded code. Okay, so here what we are doing, into this getAccounts method, here we are passing page size and last record ID, then assigning response into records to display property, and also appending new records into records property. I mean, here we have used spread operator to add new records into existing records and assigned into records array. So in this records property, we will have data of current page and previous pages, because always we are appending new records inside this. Okay. Now in data table, let's wrap this records to display property. Okay. Here one more thing is, as of now in this component, we don't have total records count. I mean, from this apex method, we are not returning all the data. We are only returning data as per page size, and it could be 10, 20 or 50 as per user's selection. So now here to get total records count, let's create another apex method and call that using wire decorator. Let me copy code from downloaded files. Okay, here what I have done, I have copied this get total accounts count method. So now this method will return available records count in account object, and in component, here we have called that method using wire decorator and assigned response in total records property. Okay, now I think we are done with code changes. So let's deploy apex class and this component. Deployment is done. Now let's see server-side pagination is working or not. Alright, now here we can see pagination strip, and once I'll click on this next button, then we can see next set of records. I mean, here we can see records from 11 to 20. Let me click once more. Alright, now we can see records from 21 to 30. It means next button is working fine. Now let's click on previous button. Alright, previous button is also working fine. And now let's try to change page size to 20. Now we can see 20 records here, and let's try to change 5 as well. Now here we can see only 5 records, which means page size is also working fine, right? And here we can see visible records and total records count. And here you can see current page number, and this is the total pages count. Okay, so this is how server-side pagination is also working fine. And now at a high level, let's understand it again, how it is actually working. So whenever this component will get load, then this wire decorator will get called and fetch and assign total records count into total records property. And also this connected callback lifecycle hook will get called. And inside this method, here we are calling apex method and passing page size, which is 10 by default, and initially last record ID will be blank. So this apex method will return initial 10 records. And now after getting data, we are storing them into records to display property, and the same property is assigned into data table as well. So data table will show those 10 records, and here we are also storing those records into this records property. And here in this paginator component, we are passing required details like page size and total records count. So this component will render pagination strip, and once we'll click on next button, then pagination change custom event will raise, and here we have added a listener for that event and assigned this handler method. It means whenever any change happen in this paginator component, then this method will automatically get called. Now here inside this method, what we are doing here, first we are checking is page size changed, then we are resetting records array, I mean making it empty, and assigning new page size into page size property. And here we are assigning new page number into page number property, and then here we are checking is records property length is less than page size multiply page number. If yes, then we are getting last record ID. How we are getting last record ID? We used to store all the records inside records property. So here we have used records and passed records length -1, which means last index. So in JavaScript, if we pass index inside square brackets, then it will return particular item that is available on that particular index. And here we have passed last index, which means it will return last item. And then here we are taking particular ID. Here we are accessing ID property. Okay. So this is how we are getting last fetched record ID. Then here again we are calling this method. It means calling this apex method again to get next set of records. This time we will have value in this last record ID property. So in this SQL query, this where condition will append, because now last record ID is not blank. So this condition will true, and in query, this where condition will be added. It means now this query will return next set of records that have ID greater than to this last record ID. Okay. And here in component, we are assigning new data into records to display property and appending new records into records property. So this is how from server, we will fetch next set of records on next button click. And now if we click on previous button, then this condition will become false. So control will reach here, and we are storing all the data inside records property. So to get data for previous pages, we are not calling server again. We are directly getting data from records property. And by using slice method, getting data for particular record and assigning into this records to display property. And we are passing this property here into Datatable. So records will automatically update on UI as well. Alright. So this is how server-side pagination is working. And I hope now you have fair understanding about how server-side pagination is working. And now you can easily implement server-side pagination in your application or wherever required. And here I'm not covering sorting scenario, like how pagination will work if we add sorting with Datatable. I can say that scenario is also achievable with the same approach. Here inside this SQL query, along with ID, you can pass other columns as well in order by. Like let's say you want to sort data by name field, then you can simply add name field here, like this. Okay. And if you want to add dynamic sorting, then you have to add two more input parameters here to take sort column name and sort order. Then you can build query accordingly. I hope you got the point. If you need any help or you want me to cover that scenario as well, like how we can enable sorting on Datatable with pagination, then do let me know in the comments. We'll create a separate video on that. Okay. And now at last, let's see how to do server-side pagination without Datatable. This will be quite same as with Datatable. Whole JavaScript code will be same, because here also we want to implement server-side pagination. We will have few differences in the HTML file. So let's open this component.js file and copy code from this with Datatable.js file, or you can take it from downloaded code as well. For now, let me copy from this with Datatable.js file. Okay. Now pagination wise data we are storing in this records to display property, and here in component HTML file, here we have used records property. So let's replace it with records to display. Okay. And now let's call paginator component here. And for that, let's copy code from downloaded code. Okay. Now here we have called paginator component and passed page size and total records count property. And also here we are passing one more new property, that is items per page options. In which scenario we should pass this property? Whenever we want to show different values in page size dropdown. If you want to show same values which we defined here, then we don't need to pass this property. If you want to show different values from default, then you should pass values in this property. And here I am just passing for demo purpose. And now let's copy this property as well. And change default page size to 12 because now we don't have 10 as option. Okay. So in with data table and without data table pagination, we have only one difference. That is, here instead of data table, we are using lightning layout. And it's completely depends on your actual requirement. I mean, here you can use any element to show records as per your UI demand. Okay. Now let's deploy and test this component. Alright, now here also we can see pagination strip, and in page size dropdown, now we have different options. Let's try to change to 6. Okay, now we can see only 6 records here. Let's try to click on next button as well. Alright, now we can see next set of records. It means our pagination is working fine. Right, here you might be noticed one thing, that in case of server side pagination, we don't have go to first and go to last button and that drop down too. Yes, those options will not available in case of server side pagination. Why? Because in server side pagination, to paste next set of records, we required last record ID, and if we show go to last button, then we will not be able to identify from where we should pick records. I mean, in that case, we will not have correct last record ID. We can do order by descending, but in that case, records will be visible in reverse order, right? And if we show drop down, then user can select any page number. I mean, let's say now user on second page, but from that drop down, user can directly jump on 5th page as well. Now, in that case, how we will get data for 5th page? Because there we don't have last record ID of 4th page, right? Here we can only show go to first page button, because in case of first page, we can set last record ID as blank, then system will automatically take initial records, right? So that's it in this video. I hope now you can easily implement any kind of pagination in your components, and I have uploaded this code and will provide download link in video description, so you can download from there and use same code if you want. If this video helped you to learn something new, then please help me to by like and subscribe this YouTube channel. For me, it's really taking so much time to create such kind of content for you, and I can see only 25% viewers has subscribed to this channel, whereas for you, it's completely free and won't take more than a second. So just hit on like and subscribe button, and also don't forget to share your feedback in comments. That will really give me motivation to create more such kind of content for you. Once again, thank you so much. I will see you in next video.